I once dreamed of a happy family life with Kevin, but I was completely fed up when his parents, Mary and George, started showing up at our house every week. They treated my home like their own, lounging around from early morning until late at night, while Kevin dumped their care entirely on me and went out to hang out. One day, I came home to find Kevin had taken my things from my room without asking. When I confronted him, Mary and George smirked.
We'll be using your room.
That's right. You can sleep in the storage room.
As I stood there, speechless, Mary suddenly snapped back to her usual tone.
Everyone, we need to rest early to prepare for the family trip tomorrow.
A trip? Nobody told me about that,
You're staying here. You're not our family.
Mary said with a mocking laugh,
Make sure to clean the house.
barking orders at me arrogantly. Kevin returned to the room with Mary and George. I watched them leave in stunned silence, feeling a fierce anger rise from the depths of my stomach. How dare they treat my house like this? If that's how they want to play, I've got plans of my own. I'm Emma, a housewife celebrating my 3rd year of marriage to Kevin. Kevin, whom I met at a work-related gathering, was competent and well socialized. After working together a few times, we grew fond of each other, and our relationship began. When I heard his hobby was gambling, I felt a little worried, but it seemed to just involve placing bets on major horse races or playing games at the arcade on weekends, so it wasn't a problem at all. Eventually, we got married. Having lost my parents in my teens and being raised by my relatives, I was thrilled to finally have a family of my own. However, the reality awaiting me was far from the life I had imagined. Before our marriage, I confided in Kevin about losing my parents when I was a child. He gave me a kind smile and said,
When we get married, you can think of my parents and my sister as your family.
"Thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting them." When we got engaged and I met Kevin's family, his parents, Mary and George, seemed calm and kind. His much younger sister, Stephanie, was a glamorous beauty, so striking that even as a woman, I found her stunning. Right after our wedding, during Christmas and other events, Stephanie, Mary, and George were considerate and very kind to me. But after a while, Stephanie, Mary, and George began to show their true colors. During a casual conversation at home, when Kevin mentioned that my parents had passed away when I was a teenager, Stephanie gave me a mocking look.
No wonder. Emma, I always thought you lacked common sense. Must be from growing up without enough parental love.
Her words hit a nerve. Sure, I was raised by my relatives, but my aunt and uncle loved me like their own. And who's the one lacking common sense here? I muttered to myself internally. After all, Stephanie, who had just gotten married recently, constantly came over to our house to have meal. She'd show up because her husband, Ryan, was on a business trip overseas, and she found it too much trouble to cook for one person. She could have ordered delivery or picked up some takeout, but she clearly didn't want to spend the money.
It's so lonely eating by myself. I want to eat with Kevin.
She'd say it in such a cutesy way, and Kevin, completely charmed, would happily welcome her. To make matters worse, even when dinner was already prepared, she'd ask for something else entirely.
Kevin, I'm in the mood for Italian tonight. I'd love some pasta.
She says so. Just save what you made for tomorrow and go get the ingredients.
I pulled Kevin aside into the hallway and whispered my frustration. This is ridiculous. The side dishes are already done. How am I supposed to change the whole menu now?
Just save it for tomorrow.
That's not the point. I work full-time, and since you say you're bad at cooking, I've been taking care of the shopping and cooking. I prepped this morning and just finished everything.
Stephanie said she wants to eat your cooking. You should be grateful she appreciates it. What's your problem?
Kevin furrowed his brow and spat out.
Just hurry up and make it now.
It was clear that talking any further wouldn't get us anywhere. Kevin values his sister Stephanie more than his wife. I felt a surge of frustration, but I told myself that maybe this is just how family bonds are, and I drove to the nearby grocery store. Another frustration of mine is how close Kevin and Stephanie are.
Kevin, here, open your mouth.
The food Stephanie feeds me is delicious.
Sitting across from each other at the table, the two would feed each other or take selfies with their cheeks pressed together, behaving more like a couple than siblings. When I voiced my dissatisfaction to Kevin, he smirked and said,
What's wrong, Emma? Are you jealous?
"It doesn't make me feel good."
She's just being affectionate with me. Isn't it cute?
I felt nauseated. If a 27-year-old woman is genuinely being this clingy to her 39-year-old brother, it's a serious problem. But Kevin didn't understand my concerns and just laughed it off, so I stopped protests. Eventually, when Ryan returned to working locally, Stephanie stopped coming over. I felt relieved, thinking I could finally relax. One weekend morning, as I was dozing in bed, the doorbell suddenly rang loudly. I checked my phone. It was only 5 a.m. Kevin, who had been sleeping in the study next door, rubbed his eyes and got up as well. When we both looked at the intercom, standing under the porch light were Mary and George. Thinking it must be something urgent, I opened the door, only for them to waltz in without so much as a greeting.
Well, Stephanie was right. What a lovely home.
Mary's eyes lit up. When we renovated the house and had a housewarming party, Mary and George had declined our invitation, saying they were busy helping Stephanie prepare for her wedding.
What do you need? It's only 5 a.m.
It's time to wake up, isn't it? Stephanie told us how cozy your house is. She was right. The high ceilings, the spacious living room. It's all so comfortable.
Dragging George along, she started inspecting the bedrooms, bathroom, and other rooms on her own, looking quite pleased.
I love it. We'll be coming over every week from now on, so get ready.
What? Every week? Plopping herself down on the couch, Mary turned on the TV without asking, and George relaxed beside her.
Hey, isn't breakfast ready yet?
Emma, something simple will do. 5 dishes should be enough.
Kevin yawned and turned his back on the living room.
I'm going back to bed. Emma, you take care of them.
Wait.
Emma, I'm starving. Hurry up, will you?
Glaring at Kevin's retreating figure, I reluctantly started preparing breakfast. I assumed Mary and George must have their own plans and wouldn't actually come every week. But starting the following Saturday, they began visiting us every single week. Sometimes they'd arrive early in the morning, other times in the early afternoon. Even on days with heavy rain or snow, when I thought for sure they wouldn't show up, they came anyway. It was beyond surprising. It was almost frightening. What made it worse was that Saturdays were my only day off work. Just serving Mary and George drinks and entertaining their small talk with a forced smile was enough to completely ruin my precious day off. Kevin, rather than hosting them himself, would conveniently head out right when they arrived and wouldn't return until they were gone. Mary and George acted as if the living room were their own, taking over the space, laughing hysterically at the TV, and generally making themselves at home. After enduring this for more than 2 years, I finally reached my breaking point and decided to speak up. Could you please stop coming over so often? Saturdays are my only day off, and when you're here, I can't relax. George scowled at me with obvious irritation.
What's wrong with visiting my son's house?
Oh, don't worry about us.
Mary said with a smile.
We just come and go as we please. If you have plans, Emma, feel free to head out.
All right. Why am I the one being pushed out of my own house? Though frustrated, I decided to follow Mary's suggestion. The following week, I went out before Mary and George arrived, spent the day enjoying shopping and a movie, and even had dinner out before returning home. When I got back, Kevin handed me a stack of receipts. As I looked through them, I nearly fainted. Sandwiches, $30. Pizza, $75. Premium steak, $80.
And here's for the drinks and snacks. Mom said to pay her back for everything when they come next week.
Looking around, I saw the living room table covered with lunch containers, cups, and empty snack wrappers. The room, which I had just cleaned the day before, was a complete mess. Wait, I'm the one who's supposed to pay for this.
Of course, you left the house without hosting our guests.
The way Kevin said it made it sound like I was the one at fault, and I felt crushed. All I want is to enjoy my day off.
Then just do it.
Kevin shrugged and walked into the bathroom. I was deeply disappointed by Kevin's attitude, but I held back my complaints, knowing it would lead to a huge argument. Kevin is kind and easygoing when his family isn't involved. I didn't want to lose the family I'd finally gained. Since I'd realized how ridiculously expensive it was when Mary and George ordered delivery, I decided to start cooking for them again the following week. Kevin continued to act indifferent, as if none of this concerned him. Lately, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of dread every Friday night. The thought of being jolted awake the next morning by Mary and George's visit made me genuinely wish the night would never end. One Friday evening, I came home feeling gloomy, only to find George's car parked in the driveway. When I opened the front door, I froze in place. Kevin was coming down the stairs, carrying my work laptop. "Hey, don't touch that without asking." When I instinctively raised my voice, Kevin descended the stairs with a sullen expression and placed the laptop in the hallway. When I looked closer, I saw my desk, chair, and even my mattress had been moved out. Just as I was about to confront him, Mary and George walked in.
Kevin, almost done?
Just let Emma move the rest. Take my bookshelf to her room, will you?
Standing there, stunned, I could only blink in disbelief as Mary smirked at me.
We'll be using your room.
That's right. You can sleep in the storage room.
I glanced at the three of them one by one, trying to understand, but Mary burst out laughing in a high-pitched voice.
Don't you get it yet? Starting today, we're living here.
And since you seem to hate being around us, you can move to the storage room.
Nobody told me we'd be living together. I finally managed to squeeze out those words. Mary, grinning as if she'd come up with a brilliant prank, explained,
This was Stephanie's idea, she said. Emma seems strong-willed. If you ask her outright, she'll probably say no. Just take over the house while you're visiting.
Next to her, George chuckled.
With the storage room being so close, you can still take care of us, right?
Don't worry, I'll have her quit her job eventually so she can focus on taking care of Mom and Dad.
Of course, she's the wife of the eldest son after all.
As I stared blankly at Kevin, who puffed out his chest as if proud of himself, Mary suddenly snapped back to reality.
We don't have time for this. Everyone, let's get to bed early. We have a family trip starting tomorrow.
A trip? Nobody told me about that.
You're staying here. You're not our family.
Mary said with a mocking laugh.
I can't wait for our 2-week Europe tour.
Hey, make sure to clean up the house while we're gone. Don't slack off.
Barking orders at me arrogantly, Kevin returned to the room with Mary and George. As I watched them leave in stunned silence, the sound of their laughter echoing from the end of the hallway stirred a deep anger within me. How dare they treat my house like this? If that's how they want to play, I've got plans of my own. The next day, after Kevin, Mary, and George left for their trip, I put my plan into action. I checked all the personal items and small appliances Kevin had taken from my room without permission and packed only the essentials into a suitcase and bag. The larger furniture and appliances could wait in a storage unit until I found my next place to live. Once I arrived at a business hotel, I contacted a demolition company and arranged for a specific procedure. I spent busy days shuttling between the hotel and the house, discussing plans with the contractors, cleaning the house, and deciding whether to sell unwanted items online or throw them away. 2 weeks later, as everything was settled as planned, I was enjoying lunch at the hotel when Kevin called. Hello.
Hey, it's gone.
What?
Our house. It's gone.
Kevin's panicked voice was practically a scream.
We came back from the trip, and the place where the house stood is now just an empty lot. What the hell happened?
That wasn't your house, Kevin.
What?
That was the house I inherited from my parents, along with the land. When we got married, I renovated it for us to live in, and I paid for the renovation because it's under my name. Did you forget that?
No, of course not. I remember.
Kevin stammered as he answered.
But I'm the head of the household, and we were living there together, so it wasn't wrong to call it my house.
I could tell he had completely forgotten, and I was exasperated. That's why he had been so arrogant in front of Mary and George. And by the way, I had no idea about the caregiving plans for Mary and George. Could you stop making decisions without me?
Well, I'm the one earning more, aren't I? It's only natural for the person earning less to quit their job and take care of the parents.
When Kevin spoke arrogantly, I responded with a firmer tone. Oh, really? Well, let me tell you something. You asked me to take care of things at home, so I scaled back my work and started coming home early. But my base salary is higher than yours. So if I worked overtime or took on extra shifts, I'd be earning more than you.
What?
And since they're your parents, shouldn't you and Stephanie take care of them? Dumping caregiving responsibilities on me. What century do you think this is? Finally, I let out all the frustration I'd been holding in, and Kevin angrily shot back.
You're so full of yourself for a wife. Don't you care about getting along with your husband's family?
I've tried plenty. Why don't you say the same thing to your parents?
That's exactly the problem with you. My childhood home was sold, so it's gone now. What are we supposed to do?
As Kevin yelled, I replied calmly, It's my stuff, so I can do whatever I want with it.
Yeah, but our things. Dad's furious you got rid of them without permission. He says you're going to pay for it.
They're just in the storage unit. I'll give you the location later so you can pick them up. I'll include the contract fee with the divorce papers I'll be sending. Kevin gasped on the other end of the phone.
Divorce? You've got to be kidding. Over just one fight? We've gotten along so well until now.
Gotten along? Really? I've been holding back this entire time, trying not to cause any trouble with Mary and George.
Are you saying my family's the problem?
I sighed. This was going nowhere. Kevin, in his usual arrogant tone, continued.
Calm down. Dad and Mom said they'll forgive you if you apologize.
It was Mary and George who kicked me out of the house. Why should I be the one to apologize? I yelled into the phone and then hung up. I never realized just how selfish he truly is from now on. I'll hire a lawyer and start the divorce process. With that thought, I began looking for a reputable lawyer. A few days later, Ryan called me. Ryan, it's been a while. What's going on?
Emma, well, I need to talk to you about something.
Ryan hesitantly started to explain. After hearing the details, I nodded firmly. Got it. Leave it to me. That weekend, I summoned Mary, George, and Stephanie to the hotel where I was staying. I didn't really want to see them again, but it was necessary to settle things.
Emma, don't you think it's bold of you to call us here when you're just the wife?
As Stephanie remained as arrogant as ever, I smiled at her sweetly. Stephanie, you've been hiding something, haven't you? Stephanie's face twisted nervously.
Of course not.
That's strange. Ryan reached out to me for advice. He asked when you're finally going to agree to the divorce. Kevin, Mary, and George turned to Stephanie, their faces filled with shock.
You mean he's already asked for a divorce?
Why didn't you tell us? You could have talked to us about it.
Actually, you're currently separated, staying at your friend's place while considering divorce, right? That means you're still legally married to Ryan. But this is a serious problem. I placed some photos on the table, and Stephanie let out a sharp scream. She scrambled to snatch the pictures, crumpling them and shoving them into her skirt pocket. But it was too late. Kevin, Mary, and George had already started bombarding her with questions.
That blonde guy wasn't Ryan, was he?
And this one's a brunette. What are you doing going into a hotel with other men?
Were you cheating?
Stephanie clicked her tongue.
Emma, have you been snooping around behind my back?
I heard it from Ryan. He told me that you've been messaging multiple men, Stephanie. I exposed her without hesitation. He couldn't understand why you wouldn't just get divorced if you're going to cheat. So I hired a private investigator to gather evidence.
I'm not getting divorced. I don't want to work.
Stephanie said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world.
That guy is just an ATM, but he's always complaining. He tells me to take out the trash every week, clean the house sometimes, or cook meals.
Mary, George, and Kevin's faces grew visibly tense.
When Ryan comes home from work, someone as adorable as me is there to welcome him. That alone should make him ridiculously happy. I mean, I married him, so he should stop complaining about the house being a mess or eating store-bought meals every day.
Yeah, you're right. Stephanie's so cute, she doesn't need to do anything.
Exactly. That's why I got mad and cheated on him while he was overseas. I'm not the one in the wrong here.
Are you serious?
George asked, completely baffled, while Mary looked like she had swallowed something bitter.
You're a stay-at-home wife, perfectly healthy, and you don't even have kids. Of course, Ryan would ask for a divorce if you don't do anything around the house.
Stephanie looked shaken as she was scolded by Mary and George, whom she thought were on her side. But Kevin puffed out his chest proudly and said,
Don't worry, Stephanie. I'm on your side.
Really?
Yeah. Hey, if you get divorced, let's live together. A luxury apartment sounds fun, doesn't it?
A luxury apartment? Oh my God. I love you, Kevin.
Stephanie hugged Kevin, and he beamed with delight.
You're so cute.
I shot Kevin a cold, piercing glance as he fawned over her. Are you sure you should be talking so big?
What? Are you jealous again?
No, I'm asking if it's okay to act so high and mighty when you're drowning in debt. Aren't you also taking salary advances? Stephanie froze. Kevin stared at me, his face pale.
How do you know that?
I accidentally opened a letter from the credit card company that got mixed in with my mail. It was a demand notice. I was shocked when I saw you owe tens of thousands of dollars. Mary, George, and Stephanie widened their eyes in disbelief. And your company is one of the clients of my company, right? The other day, I had lunch with a friend who works there, and they expressed concern, saying, it must be hard taking care of his parents while working full-time.
taking care of us.
George looked utterly confused. You wanted more money for gambling. So when you asked for a salary advance, you lied and said it was for your parents' caregiving expenses, didn't you? Kevin's voice trembled as he asked.
Anne, what did you tell your friend?
Of course, I told them it was a blatant lie. I smiled. I wonder if the news has reached your boss by now. It should make going to work tomorrow interesting.
Please, don't do this. Why would you expose me?
I snapped at Kevin, who was practically yelling. It was going to come out eventually. You're the one at fault for telling such a ridiculous lie.
Kevin, you're the worst.
Shut up. I don't need to hear that from you.
Take your sibling arguments elsewhere. Thank you all for coming today. I firmly urged Kevin, Stephanie, Mary, and George to leave. As they were heading out, Mary and George looked as though they had aged overnight. Their daughter, Stephanie, was prolonging her divorce while having multiple affairs. Their son, Kevin, was drowning in gambling debt. On top of that, he had taken salary advances, claiming it was for caregiving expenses for his parents. It was no wonder they looked hopeless.
What the hell am I supposed to do starting tomorrow?
Kevin muttered, looking on the verge of tears as he walked away. Reluctantly signing the divorce papers, Kevin was fired from his job for lying about his salary advances. To be precise, he received a stern warning from his boss, and his protest caused his dismissal.
What's wrong with spending my salary on gambling? Stay out of my hobbies.
After making such a statement, it was no surprise he was forced to resign. With hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and no job, Kevin was at a complete loss.
Emma, please. My family's cut me off, and you're the only one I can turn to. Just lend me $50,000.
When Kevin begged for money over the phone, I blocked him immediately. Later, I heard from a friend at Kevin's former company that he had moved into a rundown apartment and was juggling multiple part-time jobs from early morning until late at night to pay off his debts. As for Stephanie, who had resisted her divorce, she finally agreed when Ryan threatened to take the matter to court. On top of that, she was sued for damages by the wife of one of her affair partners and had to borrow money to pay the settlement. Now burdened with a debt almost as large as Kevin's, she reluctantly started working part-time. To cut living expenses, she moved in with Mary and George at their apartment. However, since neither Stephanie nor her parents wanted to do any housework, they ended up constantly fighting as they tried to shove the responsibilities onto each other. Meanwhile, I left the hotel and purchased a new condo, where I'm now enjoying a fulfilling life. No more unannounced visits from Mary and George. No more frustration over Kevin's dismissive attitude when I sought advice. And no more discomfort from Kevin and Stephanie's inappropriate closeness. Without the need to scale back at work, I volunteered for overtime and weekend shifts, which led to me being promoted as the team leader for a new project. Though I failed at building a new family, I've grown closer to my colleagues and juniors through work than ever before. From now on, I plan to enrich both my work and personal life while deepening the bonds with those around me.